Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. Before I get into the most important topic of this video, which I actually realised there's actually a second thing I need to talk about regarding that, as it does pertain to Axel RudakuBanana. But in the meantime, I'm going to take a few minutes just to mention one Eddie Hall, who there's been a video of him recently circulating the web. A video of him, if I give you the context of the story and then the one full context, you'll understand why I think it's pretty disgusting. So, contextless, it seems to show Eddie Hall running down after a group of people who just so happen to be recording, and Eddie Hall threatened to twist someone's neck off, basically. Death threats. Which, contextless, you obviously can't be doing that, because you can't go out of your way to threaten people, no matter who they are, or how loathsome they might be. Perish the thought, even Keir the Traitor Starmer does not deserve that. Speaking of which, he's actually had his residential home set on fire. Apparently a 21-year-old has been arrested on grounds of arson, but, well, we don't know the full story of that. Maybe I'll mention it another time. But obviously, in a contextless sense, this video would make Eddie Hall look like a violent thug. Basically a hothead who can't control his temper. I can sympathise with him there, because I had a temper as bad as it gets, basically, back in the day. I think I mentioned the time where at one of my old houses, I even punched my computer so much, I ended up punching a hole through the fucking wall. So, I am no stranger to what anger can do. And I can assure you, I wasn't playing Wreck-It Ralph. Anyway, back to Eddie Hall. That was the contextless side of it. The true context of it was basically these people who he was going up to, these people had actually been outside his house for some time in the middle of the night when his kids are trying to sleep, and they were honking their horns constantly, basically setting up a honey trap, hoping they can basically rile up Eddie Hall and get a gotcha moment, which they have, unfortunately. And then when they expected the internet to take their side, when they were trying to portray themselves as the victims, and even after the event, unfortunately for them, the internet had other ideas. Because you see, people don't take kindly to people who go out of their way to be a public nuisance or cause a disturbance of the peace. So it's quite understandable why Eddie Hall lost his shit, quite frankly. If his kids are trying to sleep, and for all I know, these people, and I'm speculating here, these people may have been harassing him for some time. And if they have, then obviously that's grounds for harassment. Frankly, these idiots in their cars even brought their kids along, which in and of itself is a very scummy thing to do. Is this really how you want your kids to see you? As a pair of troglodytes, effectively, who get their kicks out of harassing other people? Yeah, that's a really good picture. So understandably, the whole country, I think, stands behind Eddie Hall in the hopes that our two-tier stormtroopers aren't going to come along and give him a custodial sentence. So if you're listening to this, Eddie Hall, we're right with you. We understand the true story, we have the context, and I know what they're going to try and do. They did this for clout, they did this for a reaction, they did this to gain fame. Well, they are going to be famous, all right. Only the fame they get is not going to be the fame that they begin to appreciate. And if they ever go to prison, God fucking help them, quite frankly. But now the subject you've all been waiting for. The subject that is something that I talked about in my last video, or at least the person involved, but I didn't mention this specific point, as it honestly didn't come to mind. And what is it I'm talking about? Well, it is the fact that I never mentioned why was Axel RudakuBanana even given access to a kettle in the first place? Knowing the kinds of monstrosities that this subhuman piece of vulture sperm, thanks Anglo-Saxon bloke, but seeing what this animal did to those three beautiful kids, Baby King, Alice de Silva, stroke number one, Alice de Silva Aguilar, and of course Elsie Dot, anybody hearing even the slightest details of the fact that he even tried to behead one of these girls and he'd stabbed one of them over 100 times, would make any parent recoil in absolute disgust. So surely, knowing this, surely there should have been some security checks from the security, or the prison guards in Belmarsh, bearing in mind, as we all know, Belmarsh is a Category A prison. It's meant to hold the worst types of murderers, killers, terrorists, and the like. What security checks did they do? I really would like to know. And I think the British public would like to know. I think this is very much in the public's interest to know what kind of checks was done to stop this subhuman from being a threat. Well, the cold bitter truth is they'll probably never tell us, because they know full fucking well that they did nowhere near enough security checks to keep Axel RudakuBanana in control. Sorry, did I say in control? I meant under control. You know what I mean. If I even heard the slightest details of what this vermin has done, I can assure you right now, Axel would not be living in luxury. Axel would not be treated with kid gloves. He would not be treated to a holiday camp in comparison to Tommy Robinson, who committed a civil offence, didn't hurt anyone. He never even broke contempt of court technically, because it was the Americans who put the film in the public domain. But Tommy Robinson has spent 6 fucking months in solitary confinement. How many days has Axel RudakuBanana served? Exactly. 0. In fact, fuck it, I'm just going to say it. You can be a terrorist who effectively murders, butchers, and tries to behead innocent children. You can butcher those children, and yet you'll be treated with luxury in a prison. Access to hot water, be able to live in a nice comfy mattress, be able to basically do whatever you want in what I would consider one of the highest security prisons in the country. But if you dare to expose the government, your human rights evaporate, just like that. And they'll stick you in a cold, bitter cell. They will leave you to rot for 6 months, when legally they could only hold them at 3 nights at most, not months, really made a mistake there. But you can only hold them at most for 3 nights. Under EU's regulations, it's 2 weeks. And he was held for 6 months. But of course, the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. And where is Keir the traitor Starmer? Where are all the human rights lawyers when Tommy Robinson is being sentenced to 6 months in solitary fucking confinement? Please tell me. So that puts it into comparison for you. You can be a terrorist, you can butcher kids, you can violate kids, you can try to behead kids, and yet you won't be treated with an iron fist. But if you expose the government, they'll throw the book at you, and then a tank. Well, I'll tell you one thing. There is one good thing to come out of this attack, and that is Axel RudakuBanana, and this was the other point that I didn't actually realise, by the way, but Axel RudakuBanana is effectively going to have his rights taken away in prison. Axel has done everyone a huge favour by attacking that officer, and I don't say that in the context of, oh, I wanted that officer to get hurt. Far from it. I wish that officer well. I hope he gets a fast, speedy recovery and is able to get back on the job and is able to, I guess, get a little payback for what Axel RudakuBanana did. What I am meaning when I say he did us all a favour is that he has effectively stripped himself of most of his privileges, just like that, all because he attacked that officer. Think about it. He was sitting there, he had a bit of luxury while he was in there. I mean, it wasn't like a fucking 5-star hotel that a lot of these illegal immigrants get, but he had more rights than most people, unfortunately. Now that he's done this, they are not going to take kindly to that at all, because they're going to realise how utterly, incomprehensibly evil this vermin is. There is no rehabilitating Axel RudakuBanana. How can you rehabilitate something with that much fundamental evil in their hearts? Sorry, heart. He's not a Time Lord, last time I checked. But the point is, Axel is going to really regret doing what he did to that officer. Even if he was doing it for the Islamic leader Alan Snack Bar. You can literally expect him to suffer from this point onwards. There are going to be people, well, I would safely say about 99% of the prison is going to hate his guts. There would be nothing that people in that prison would love more than to put his guts that are on the inside on the outside. I mean, sure, he will have obviously the Muslim population in Belmarsh, which I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what it was. I know it was at least 25% if I recall correctly, but we all know the prisons are predominantly run by Muslims. We know it's predominantly run by extremists of the so-called religion of peace, which is something the media are not going to want to tell you. But at the end of the day, every other type of prisoner is effectively going to want RudakuBanana's head on a spike, quite frankly. And even the officers who are serving in that prison are going to want to have his head on a spike. It's not hard for a prison officer to accidentally leave a door open, or to accidentally leave a cell block open, and he goes off and has a fucking coffee or something, and then all of a sudden Axel gets it in by 5 men. And I wonder how that's going to go down, considering when Tommy Robinson got absolutely done up, the mainstream media put out a hit piece on Tommy's, laughing at him effectively, saying Tommy gets done. I wonder how much the Sun will be laughing if it's Axel getting beaten up, quite frankly. But I mentioned it earlier in this video, and I did ask, why does Axel even have remote access, let alone actual access, to boiling water? At best, he should be given lukewarm water. At worst, he should be getting nothing but cold water, cold showers, and shitty conditions. Because the way I look at it, anybody that goes after children, if it was down to me, he'd be getting the electric chair. I mean, okay, it will not compare to the suffering that the parents and the people of Southport have had to suffer, but at least he'll get a taste of the suffering he inflicted on others. I think a lot of people will universally agree that for scum like Axel, for people who are willing to go out of their way to murder children, the death penalty is befitting of this absolute piece of filth. You cannot sit here and say that Axel RudakuBanana does not deserve the death penalty for what he's done. And as I said, Axel may not be able to suffer as much as he made those children suffer, but at least it would be something to at least give those parents and the people of Southport closure, as well as give Axel a taste of what he put them through. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine how painful it would be to be strapped to a chair and basically have your entire body, your insides getting cooked like you're in a fucking volcano, whilst you've got all those volts surging through and just doing a number on you. I cannot imagine how painful that would be. But surely it would be nothing for someone like Banana. But if this subhuman had to live, do you know what the first thing I'd be doing? I'd take away that fucking mattress of his. I'd replace it with a concrete hard one. Or no mattress at all. Make him sleep on the fucking concrete. Make him sleep on the floor. Make sure he's denied the right to showers. Or if he does have a shower, make sure the water's ice fucking cold, so he knows exactly how appreciated he is on this earth. The only food I'd be willing to serve that vermin is probably absolute slop, like the sort of thing you'd expect for the absolute worst kinds of school dinners. Like, make that kid suffer. I don't care what his fucking age is. I don't care if he's 10 years old or if he's 50 years old. At the end of the day, if you go out of your way to murder or violate kids, you are the scum of the earth, the lowest of the low. The only warmth I want this guy to feel is the absolute hatred from every other prisoner in that cell. The only heat I'd ever give him is at the end of a red hot poker. Now they are saying that apparently they are going to treat him like Hannibal Lecter now, and that they're basically going to be feeding him by a little slip or slit in the door. Frankly, that should have happened from day one. And frankly, I personally, even if I'd said, well, he only deserves to eat slop, frankly, I'd let him starve. Let him starve. Let him have a taste of what starving to death means. Like, anything I could wish upon this vermin, I would do it, and I would do it again. And I would do it in front of the king, if I could. And I'd be telling our king, look what your faith in Islam has given us. Scum of the earth that literally had enough ricin in his home and an Al-Qaeda training manual, but he had enough ricin to kill over 10,000 people. Think about it. Think of what could happen if, let's play out the scenario, let's say Axel RudakuBanana had the perfect opportunity to kill 10,500 people with that ricin, just for the sakes of argument. What if he was able to do that? I guarantee you a killing like this would be the worst in British history, and it would end up sparking a civil blank, just like that, because of the amount of damage that would do to English society. And I think football lads, builders, all sorts, they'd be dropping tools, or they'd be picking them up and going to blank with the people from the so-called religion of peace. And let me be clear, none of us want it to descend to civil blank, but the cold bitter truth is some of us understand that this is going to happen sooner or later. It's just a matter of when. But as I said, Axel should never have been given any access to boiling water. He shouldn't have even been given access to lukewarm water, let alone boiling water. And what if he had sugar as well? He could have mixed that together, as I said, with boiling water, and he could have made napalm, took the officer's skin off, could have killed him. Like, this is a sad day, obviously, because, or it was a sad day when the attack happened, because of two reasons. One, obviously, an officer got seriously hurt, could have been killed on the back of this, and it shows how malevolent this vermin is, that is Axel RudakuBanana. But it's also a sad day for a second reason, in that it has to showcase that there are serious, fundamental failings. That was an ambulance, not the police. Anyway, it shows fundamental failings from our two-tier police, our two-tier justice system, our incompetent Belmarsh staff. And they may not like what I have to say, but the cold bitter truth is they had every opportunity to prevent this if they took a far more robust approach to vermin like this. You can't go... And bear in mind, there was also that wanker who helped plan the Manchester Arena bombing as well, who ended up committing an acid attack and stabbed another officer. Like, he injured 3 people, I believe. All of them survived, thankfully. But surely this has to showcase how intolerant this so-called religion of peace is. This so-called religion that basically hates everything that isn't a part of their extremist ideology, yet wants to live in our countries, to turn our countries into third world shitholes. And that's the thing. Unlike a lot of people, as I've said before, you can say it with me, I'm not going to sugarcoat a motherfucking thing. I'm not going to mince my words. I'm going to say it exactly how it is, and I will do my best not to bullshit you. Because at the end of the day, I appreciate not every Muslim is like this. I accept that. However, there needs to be more done to expose the extremist side of this religion. You can't expect people to turn a blind eye to something as atrocious as one of these terrorist attacks from these religions of peace wankers who specifically target children. But you know what really pisses me off? Is when the media then says, oh, they're part of the Asian community. No, they're not part of the Asian community, because you're then implying Chinese people, Korean people, Japanese people. Last time I checked, it wasn't those people who predominantly go out of their way to basically rape English girls. It's Pakistani Muslim men that mostly do it. But again, the media don't want to tell you that. They slander the whole of the Asian community, even though they're not the ones responsible, and they do a lot of good by us. Some of these Chinese, Asian, Japanese people, they do a lot of good for us. And I am sorry from the bottom of my heart to all those people that have to sit here and be subjected to this vile slander from the mainstream media. And unlike the mainstream media, I know what slander means. When you openly, libelously slander people, you say something knowing it's not true, or without doing due diligence of doing your research. Whereas a lot of us people who are supposedly called far right, which is practically a badge of honor at this point, like you could literally use them as like decorations of a wartime veteran. But there is going to come a time where eventually the English people are going to stop being apathetic, and they're going to start realizing who the real threats are. They're going to start realizing who these people in the establishment serve. Their government, not their people. We're going to see people who eventually get so fed up with the intolerant religion of Islam going out of their way to openly attack people who are isolated in their little hive mind gangs, or go out of their way to violate women and children, or in Axel RudakuBanana's case, go out of their way to butcher kids. That eventually these people are going to rise up and they're going to say enough's enough. And then there will be more riots, and there will be a civil war, and there will be nothing the establishment can do to stop it. The real far right that they keep blethering on about have been in hiding for some time, because I suspect a lot of these people know full well what's coming, and right now they want to keep a low profile so that then when it all kicks off, they've got the edge over the establishment. That's the thing. Our establishment likes to think they know exactly what they're talking about. Keir the traitor Starmer likes to think he knows what he's talking about, and likes to think that his little speech about immigration is going to win him a few more fucking votes. The real reason he's done that is he's shitting himself that Reform are starting to win all the council positions, and they're actually threatening Labour's position. And as I said, I'm not a fan of Reform because of all the slander that they've done. However, if it does come down to it, as an absolute last resort, I may vote Reform. No promises, but I know deep down that Keir the traitor Starmer is more afraid of his constituencies being taken over by Reform than he is the indigenous people. He's not focused on the people because he wants to retain his power, because he's a dictator. He is a fascist. He is a far-left, socialist, Marxist, globalist dictator. Dictator. Or maybe I was right first time. He prioritised the protection of Axel RudakuBanana while locking up people who dared to speak out against him. Just like our Conservative government tried and successfully got Tommy Robinson fined, paid through the nose for telling the truth about Jamal and putting out a documentary that exposes our establishment, and Keir the traitor Starmer sent the Attorney General after Tommy Robinson for exposing them. And he was treated far worse than Axel RudakuBanana. Tommy Robinson is speaking out against terrorists. Axel RudakuBanana is a terrorist, and yet the terrorist is being treated better than the person who speaks out against the terrorists. Well, Keir the traitor Starmer better watch himself. Because as I've said before, I reckon in the next 11 or so months, we're going to see one or two things happen. Either this country is going to get taken over, or the British people are going to rise up. Thank you. And if the British people rise up, it's not going to be pretty. At all, in fact. The bottom line is Axel should never have had access to that boiling water in the first place, quite frankly. He should have had no access to that. He should not have been treated with kid gloves. The security, the prison officers, should have been more diligent with their checks on Banana. Because, I mean, for me, I think the huge red flag for me is the fact that he stabbed a child 100 fucking times. It was actually 120. But it doesn't change the fact that he didn't just want to kill the children, he wanted to absolutely annihilate them. And I don't know about you, but I'm not even the biggest fan of kids. But even that fucking shit scares me. Even I feel genuinely terrified when I'm hearing that kids are being treated like this by Banana. What about you lot? What do you think? Would that terrify the shit out of you if you had some murderous scumbag who was basically in your area or in your prison that basically had a trigger-happy mentality of wanting to not just kill children but absolutely annihilate them? I know it would fucking scare me. I know it would well and truly scare me. It shouldn't even come into question, quite frankly. Now, time for me to do my bit. My good deed for the day, if you will. Because, obviously, we know what the pro-plasticine lot are like. Not even fit to scrape the boots. If it were down to me, as I said, bottom line is that guy would be getting the chair, quite frankly. And I would have a live showing of his execution. Because there ain't any way in God's earth that you are going to convince me that Axel RudakuBanana is this innocent Welsh choir boy and that he is deserving of his free trial of life. He isn't even... I wouldn't even give him a can of fresh air. I wouldn't even give him a can of bad air, to be honest. But as I said, at least there's one positive thing to come out of all this, and that is Axel has kind of shot himself in the foot as far as his luxury living in prison is concerned. Now he is going to wish that he had never attacked that officer. But the most important question is, when are we going to bring back the death penalty for vermin like this? Because some people can atone for their sins. However, there are some that are so incessantly, fundamentally, and abhorrently evil in this world that sometimes the only solution for a bad egg is to throw it in the trash.